Welcome to the Development Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. Uh, I am Roya Rahmani, Director of Global Engagement at the World Bank Group. And today we would like to talk about something in development that we don't often enough talk about. It is about people and the institutions that shape them. With that, since you are the president of Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University, one of the HBCUs or historically Black colleges and universities. Let me start right there and ask you, what is or what are HBCUs?
First, Ambassador Rahmani, thank you for the invitation to the World Bank Group. HBCUs are something that we define as not just being a federal designation along with the 1890 land grant status, but institutions and universities and colleges, to include community colleges that are somewhat sacred and divine and have a mission for helping particularly and specifically African Americans coming up out of slavery and Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction and Jim Crow and segregation to become a part of the fabric and fiber of the nation, United States of America. At the turn of the 19th century, there were 426, and now there are about 105 that are remaining. Alabama A&M being one of those. We were founded in 1875. Gained our land grant distinction around 1890. And so land grant was a granting of land by the federal government for those purposes and for uh, experimental research, development of products, development of cultivation strategies and mechanisms, as well as animal production. But more importantly, research and extension was endemic to that and helping citizens to become more, for lack of a better term, educated to be able to provide for themselves, but eventually to be able to cultivate and produce for the larger population. So both HBCU and 1890 are federal designations, and these institutions have helped create what we call an educated and middle class for African Americans, and they also offered disciplines that we could not enter into 1862's, particularly the conservative area of the agricultural and mechanical sciences being the engineering sciences.
The World Bank Group and HBCUs have been striving towards this strong partnership for past couple of years. And it's a partnership that is designed to open doors for shared research, deeper talent pipeline, and knowledge exchanges that connects U.S. institutions with global development priorities. So, in that context, I would like to hear from where you sit what would make this partnership most meaningful and impactful.
Of course, we as 1890 and HBCUs are continually trying to scale up and develop and enhance capacity to do research, instruction, teaching, community service, and the like. However, as you know, funding becomes a challenge. And so any partnership with a major government agency is always important for us and enables us to expand and enhance our ability to serve our population. So that partnership will allow us to better serve those constituents. Particularly, we're able to partner with you on projects where there are funding that allow us to expand our capacity. But number two, we are in a strategic effort to expand our footprint, and that footprint is beyond just statewide or regional, but we would like to further our influence, our footprint, and enhance our recognizability internationally, particularly South and Central America and Sub-Saharan Africa. We do have some projects. We have one with Rwanda now. We have one with Brazil and Argentina. But we would definitely like to get involved more in developing countries. Most of our families were either subsistence farmers or sharecroppers. And so as a result, we have a history of taking people from that situation scenario to becoming more able to cultivate and produce on a larger level, but also process and distribute. And so we think our extension programs, our public service programs, our research and instruction programs would be key to helping the 90% of agricultural producers who are still at the family and subsistence level, particularly in developing countries.
Let's now pivot and talk a little bit about the developing countries. As you mentioned, one of the World Bank major initiatives currently is Mission 300. Mission 300 aims to provide reliable, accessible, and affordable electricity to 300 million Africans that do not have access to electricity currently as we speak. So by the year 2030, in this partnership that you have been building, why do you think that access to electricity is so fundamental or such a fundamental pillar of development? And what would your university could potentially do in terms of this partnership in medium to long term in this regard?
Well, there are a couple things here that we can do. We can provide technical assistance. That's number one. Number two, research-based information, but also um, our extension professionals could really help to teach and to train and prepare the population for adjusting to greater access to energy. Now, with electricity, there's something else that's got to come with it too, which is plumbing and the ability to, for lack of a better term, move water. And of course, it takes energy to do so.
Right.
And so irrigation is very important. Some of the countries, particularly the northern basin of Africa, that have really engaged in large-scale agricultural development, the first thing that they had to tackle was the irrigation problem. And of course, energy is necessary for you to move water, particularly
Indeed.
from underneath the
Right.
surface. And so, growing up in the South myself, being a youth in the 60s and in the early 70s, there were many small farmers and subsistence farmers, sharecrop families still existing and still operating in the South. And many of them did not have running water or plumbing. And many of them were not connected to electricity and or telephone services. And so I grew up watching the transformation of that, as many of our research scientists and extension agents that are still working did. And so we saw how it allowed them to scale up and allowed them to increase and enhance their production, to be able to store food, to be able to process food, and to prepare for distribution. We think our technical expertise at the 1890, which still works with small farmers in the southern states, that we're able to help in a more direct fashion, maybe than some of our 1862 partners, and a more acceptable fashion, because the community has to accept you and take your advice, and they have to have trust and belief that you have their best interest at heart. The other piece of it is that we have a diverse faculty, particularly at Alabama A&M University. We have one of the most diverse faculties of any institutions in the country, and many of those faculty are from African states, South and Central America, and they have a firsthand experience of growing up and living in those dynamics, in those situations where they're able to impart firsthand knowledge. And we feel like we would be a great fit. We already have some projects that are wildly successful, but we need more support from the World Bank Group to really expand those projects and allow us to lend you our expertise and our experiences.
You mentioned a couple of times farmers and agriculture. And I am very pleased to mention that another major initiative that the World Bank Group has is the AgriConnect initiative that is focused on strengthening value chain for the farmers by connecting them to markets, to data, to finance, to technology, the whole entire ecosystem. When it comes to agriculture, I would like to ask you, given that your institution has been so deeply involved in it for so long, in fact, it's in your university's name, that why do you think it is such a critical element for development?
Well, you know, agriculture, and I don't want to insult anyone, but from our vantage point as agriculturalists, is the first true religion.
Mm.
Because before there was some ideas about how to engage in cultural practices. The human family had to learn how to feed itself. But agriculture is not just food, it's also fiber.
Uh-huh.
And so food and fiber are the basis of community and economic development and national interest in terms of being able to develop institutions and organizations and agencies that are able to serve the larger population. We have some projects where we're working with farmers now to get them to shift from some of the traditional crops. And we've been doing this for the last 20, 30 years to getting into vegetable and fruit production, which are smaller scale, but higher yield and higher profitability. Um, but also on the animal side, the poultry farming, how do you produce chickens and subsequently eggs at a pace and a rate to be able to serve the population in a way and in a healthy fashion, with lesser bioengineering, for lack of a better term, and biochemical input. And so we feel like we've got the example and the strategy to be able to help developing countries and those who are attached to your project's Mission 300 and AgriConnect to be able to help them to do so.
Amazing. From everything that you say, it is just the embodiment of how your university, like other HBCUs, is such a great embodiment of history, purpose, talent, and building resilience.
Yes.
That's wonderful to hear. And I, hearing and listening to you, I keep wondering what excites you at this day and age with the technological developments and advancements that are happening about agriculture and what your university has to offer into this partnership.
I'm very excited about the future of land grant. We have married agriculture with the biosciences. And so we have about 800 biology majors now that we are having them focus on. Look, everybody doesn't need to be a doctor, a dentist, or a veterinarian, but there are other professions in the biosciences and agricultural sciences that you have access to. And in some areas, there are still zero African Americans that are produced with doctorate and or masters in the country. And so we have focused on 2 PhD programs that we have in agricultural sciences, environmental and biological sciences, as well as food science. And so this is another area where we can really assist and support the initiatives of the World Bank Group in the food sciences. And in the food sciences, we have focus on food safety, food development, product development, and food chemistry. And we are one of the largest producers of food sciences with PhDs that are minority or African American in the country. We also have a very flourishing physics program. And see, when it comes to irrigation and water movement and energy, dissemination. Developing countries are importing energy, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're producing physicists. Only Howard is ahead of us in total numbers, but we're catching up fast.
You have mentioned earlier that one of your challenges is funding. In that context, I would like to ask you that looking forward into, let's say, 2030, should the universities, the governments, the multilaterals, private sector join hand towards these mission and work together, what would success look like then?
Well, I think that if the commitment of the nation states and those who have multinational influence were committed to eradicating hunger, it could be done effectively. I don't want to say overnight, but very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from our vantage point, with the wealth and the resources that we have on this planet, no one should be suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we, as 1890, understand that we can't do what we attempt to do in the southern crescent of this country if we don't do it in partnership with our state and local governments, if we don't do it in partnership with the federal government, if we don't do it in partnership with the private sector. And so we have, for the better part of 150 years, worked to forge those partnerships, and we have to continually re-engage and reinforce and request support and partnerships from those different sectors. And so if it were not for our partnerships with USDA,
Mm-hmm.
if it were not for our partnerships with agricultural corporations like CBGI and Monsanto and Lilly, uh, we would not have been able to do the work that we've done in the South. If it were not for our partnerships with Kraft and with Tyson's of the world and Sanderson Farms and many of the forestry and wood producing corporations, we would not have had the success that we've had over the last 150 years. And so if the World Bank Group would look at us as a partner, let's develop this partnership and be able to transfer our knowledge, expertise, and experience to the developing world. I think it would be a win-win for all of us.
President Wims, thank you. You have shared today what I deeply believe in, and that is that development is ultimately human.
Yes.
It grows out of the institutions that nurture talent. It's the educators that open the doors, and it's the partnership that bring purpose and possibilities together. When universities like the Alabama A&M joins hand with the institutions like the World Bank Group, we are not just executing initiatives. We are expanding opportunities, strengthening communities, and building futures that outlast any single program. Thank you for being here and for the leadership that brings this shared mission of us to life. Thank you so much.